I literally spent a month figuring out how the MCAT CARS works. While I was studying for it, my mom decided to try a couple passages and got one single question wrong while doing them. What the fuck? I wanted to know how she did so well, so I asked for her advice. And she was just like, oh, I just read the passage and did all the questions. Yeah, thanks mom, not really helpful. At the very least though, it made me realize how dumb I was. No, I'm kidding, I know I'm not dumb, it just demoralized me. I knew something was missing and I knew that I could do better, but since all this happened about 3 weeks before test day, I didn't think I could make tremendous changes. But how was it possible that someone who wasn't studying for the CARS section, who wasn't dedicating an ample amount of time learning how to develop test-taking strategies, could score so well? In this video, I'm going to break down to you what I should have done while preparing for the CARS and the mistakes that I made so that you can potentially implement that in your CARS preparation so that you can maximize your score. By no means am I the one to look for advice, but I'm here to share my story and I hope you can learn something from that. For those of you that don't know, on the MCAT exam, the CARS section just stands for the Critical Analysis and Reasoning section. If you've ever taken the MCAT or any standardized test exam, which I'm guessing a lot of you have, it's literally the SAT verbal or ACT reading sections just on steroids. I mean, you get like 4 minutes to read a passage that's probably really boring because it's talking about Rene Descartes or Socrates or a passage about love. The section is designed to fuck with your mind very early on in the MCAT test and pose as a barrier for later sections on the exam. Not just because you can lose focus on this section of the exam, but also because it can psychologically impact you, because if you do poorly on this exam, which you will be able to tell very early on if you lose track of time or spend a lot of time on one question, it messes with you because it impacts the rest of the later sections of the exam. So okay, let's get started on what I did wrong. Okay, so I practiced for the CARS section of the exam about a month leading up to test day. Dude, that's fucking horrible. In this 1 month, I spent every day doing a passage in the morning right before studying or doing practice questions. I would go onto this website that I've mentioned in previous videos called Jack Weston. Now, Jack Weston is an amazing source for MCAT preparation. Link in the description below. And no, I'm not sponsored by them, but they do a really incredible job, so you might as well consult them. They provide a significant amount of content review and a lot of practice passages. Oh, remember, don't rely just on Jack Weston for practice. If anything, you should use them in the initial stages of your preparation and then use AAMC afterward. I mean, AAMC wrote the exam, so that's why. That being said, Jack Weston releases a CARS passage daily, and I did those daily passages every day for only a month. Here's where I went wrong. I should have started my preparation for the CARS section as soon as I started my content review. Why? Because then I would be able to start building stamina for this really boring yet essential part of the exam. Had I done a Jack Weston CARS passage every single day until a week before my test day, I would have developed proper pacing for the exam. Pacing is everything. You don't have to be an English major or have a major in political science or philosophy or even history. You need to be able to understand the entire argument the author is making by reading the content in 4 minutes. In any case, when I mean that you should be doing a CARS passage every single day, you should start with 1, and then the next time or next week you should be doing 2 passages per day, then 3, then 4, and onwards to 9. You should be building it up to all 9 passages, because there's going to be 9 passages on the MCAT CARS and you have to mimic the exact same conditions that you're going to be taking there. I didn't do a single thing of that. Matter of fact, in that last month leading up to test day, I did 1 passage every day, and then because of higher anxiety from my really shit CARS scores on my practice exams, I then transitioned into doing 4 to 5 passages every day in that 1 month. That jump from 1 passage to 4 and 5 passages per day, that's not a good one. Number 1, it's because I'm spending less time reviewing the material that I got wrong and also wasting valuable CARS material. And then number 2, I'm not really building any stamina. All I'm doing is directing a lot of my mental energy to trying to be perfect on CARS passages and then depleting my energy when I repeat some of the same ill-advised reading habits and test-taking habits as well. Okay, so then let's break it down even further on how I could have maximized my CARS score. And with that, I'm going to talk about 3 tips that I could have done. When my mom did those MCAT passages, she did about like 10 minutes per passage. To be fair, some were around 9 minutes. And English isn't even her first language, which means to say that she doesn't really have a fast reading speed. But she was still able to do it and score well, far better than I could. The fuck? What I noticed though was that she was comprehending a lot of the information that was given in that passage. And in my experience, if there's anything I realized from studying this one section, a lot of the questions on the CARS require 80% comprehension. If you can figure out how to understand the passage and formulate a general structure of the argument, then you're in a very good position to answering a lot of the CARS questions. And there are so many sources out there that provide strategies on maximizing that comprehension. But I'm going to be outlining the steps that you should take so that you can maximize your practice for the CARS section of the exam. because I didn't do that. All right, so the first thing to definitely focus on is you need to focus on the big ideas. A lot of the sentences in any MCAT CARS passage have fluff, which means that you have to sift through all that fluff to figure out what the main takeaway of that paragraph is. The second thing is, at the end of every paragraph, ask yourself, why the hell did the author write this part of the passage? No, like literally ask yourself verbatim, why the hell did the author write this? If you ask yourself that, you're actively synthesizing the author's message in your head and piecing the paragraph together in the greater context of the passage. Maybe the paragraph was literally just an anecdote that describes an earlier point. Maybe the paragraph was a new point that supports the main idea of the passage. Or if you try to synthesize and actively read the information by asking yourself questions while you're reading, then it helps you formulate the passage as if it was like this outline or map. And you can then pinpoint where information is located. Honestly, I was never able to do that. I would have seen a tremendous growth in my score. The third thing is to use tools at a minimum. So what does that mean? That just means that you should avoid highlighting or writing things down on your scratch paper as minimally as possible. So this is a pretty controversial thing for me to say. And I think a lot of people would probably disagree with me on this. It's because when you're in a high stakes environment, a lot of people do highlight and write things down. But hear me out, here's why I say this. You have a total of 90 minutes to answer 53 questions that are distributed throughout 9 passages. So basically 90 minutes to do 9 passages, right? That means that on average, you're expected to be around 10 minutes per passage. But at the same time, you want to have a couple minutes at the end to review all your questions, especially those that you flagged in the end. The bottom line is that CARS is an issue of time, not an issue of competence. You can easily score 53 questions completely right if you're given as much time as you need. Any college educated or even high school educated student could do this. And so that's why I say you have very little time to digest about 80% of the material in the passage in under 4 minutes, and 2, answer the 5 to 7 questions for any particular passage in probably 6 to 7 minutes. So about a minute a question. So you have 1 minute to come up with the right answer by eliminating the wrong answers. And I'm gonna be real with you. There's just a very small margin of time for you to highlight the important details and write stuff down. It's just incredibly difficult for the average student to do that. If you disagree with me on any of these points, put it in the comments below. I'd love to hear it. Like I said, I'm by far not the top scorer. I had an average CARS score. Things like highlighting and writing stuff down just didn't work for me. And for other people, it doesn't work for them either. But if highlighting and writing down stuff works for you, then go for it. Just pay attention to time. Here's what I didn't do. I didn't employ a single third-party resource in a purposeful way. I didn't employ it through purposeful practice. So that means that you need to find a way to improve your speed without sacrificing your accuracy on those practice questions. That means that you have to be able to not only read with an effective comprehension in one pass without having to skim so much, but also use the right techniques that best work for you. Whether it comes to reading the question properly or evaluating answer choices through process of elimination or picking between 2 answer choices. And here's another thing that I didn't do. I didn't start using the third-party practice material and instead started practicing that material using test-taking strategies that were bullshit that improved my accuracy without working on my speed. And so when I had to work on my speed, I sacrificed accuracy on the AAMC material. Since I worked on MCAT CARS in that last month, I didn't initially have the time to do 2 practice passages a day with no time barrier and with full attention to accuracy so that I could build good habits for CARS. And because of that, I didn't find a way to build good test-taking habits that would allow me to answer questions properly. Okay, so given that, here's what you should do. Spend the first month while you're studying the content review for the other sciences, doing Jack Weston and New World CARS practice passages so that you practice purposefully and maximize your accuracy. Do 2 passages a day for about a week and give yourself a really large time frame, about 20 minutes per passage, so you can complete those passages with maximal accuracy. And in this way, you're developing the good habits, the good test-taking habits that allow you to answer those questions very accurately. In the next week, do 3 passages per day, but then reduce the time that you have to 15 minutes per passage. So that way you're working with those good habits that you constructed in the last week and now working with a time crunch. You're pushing yourself to work faster. And then in the week after that, do 4 passages per day, but then reduce the time that you take to 10 minutes per passage, again, while using the same test-taking habits that you have to answer questions perfectly. Remember, you're still using third-party material early on in your practice. So then once your second month of MCAT preparation begins, that's when when you start doing AAMC material. This is vital because you need to start getting used to the logic being used by the test writers themselves. Like I said, I relied a lot on third-party test materials, even in the later stages of my MCAT preparation. I can tell you right now that there are subtle differences between how the questions were being asked and how many steps I had to take logically to answer every single question. And logic leaps that you have are different from test writer to test writer. And AAMC is completely different. AAMC is its own thing. There was nobody out there that advised this. Nobody out there that suggested the right course of action that I needed. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you very much for your support. I definitely appreciate it a lot. I hope you like the content so far on my channel, and if you have any other recommendations for other videos in the future, definitely leave it in the comments below. I definitely like this style of video where I talk about my mistakes and I talk about what I could have done for your own success. Definitely subscribe if you want to see more content in the future, and hit that bell notification that's right next to that to see more videos in the future. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.